I have to say, I'm surprisingly quite disappointed by Kramer versus Kramer. I didn't dislike it, but I had very high hopes, and I will explain in a moment why it really didn't meet those expectations. This was released in 1979. It's directed by Robert Benton. It's written by Robert Benton, and it's based on the novel by Avery Corman. And we have a cast including Dustin Hoffman as Ted Kramer and Meryl Streep as his wife, Joanna Kramer. And I'll talk a little bit about the narrative. I won't go into any spoiler details, and then I'll explain, well, some positives, but also why ultimately I didn't like it as much as I thought. It's about a woman who leaves her husband, and she leaves her young boy with her husband, and Ted is finding his feet as a single father while trying to balance working, and obviously the big question is who will ultimately have custody of the child by the end of the film, hence the title. Kramer versus Kramer, we do have this legal custody battle, and on the one hand, it taught me or led me to learn things about parental rights at the time. I had to do some Googling to learn a little bit more because there were some things that were happening where I just thought that's not how it would work today. So I did some Googling and definitely learned a few things about how custody battles were different certainly at the end of the 70s. So for me, I got a bit of an education, and I rather liked that. Seeing a father trying to raise his son, dealing with his career, dealing with a custody battle, I think the character of Ted was very well written. I think there are people who will be able to relate to the character, and I think it does a really good job of portraying a father in his situation. However, there are a few things that I didn't enjoy. First of all, the length. It's an hour and 45 minutes. Now, if the narrative was brilliant all of the way throughout it, or even just most of it, I could make do with the length. It's not the longest film in the world, but it's very, very slow, and there is so much fluff. I wouldn't say a tremendous amount. I don't think we could remove 40 minutes or anything, but there's definitely a good 20 minutes of fluff here and there that just really, really slows it down. And also, and this is more about managing my own expectations, I expected more from the courtroom scenes. Given the title, given the narrative, at least my basic knowledge of the narrative, I was expecting more with regards to the legal side, the courtroom scenes, the custody battle. It's more about Ted dealing with this situation and bonding with his son and trying to raise his son as a single father while the boy's mother is off doing goodness knows what. And that's fine, but that's not what I thought the focus was. So for me, going into it, I expected something different. That's not necessarily the film's fault, but also the title does make it sound like it would be more legal heavy than it actually was. So maybe that's not the film's fault. Maybe, though, the title didn't do much to help manage expectations. But I still think the narrative is very slow. So there are some good parts. I think Ted is a very well-written character. I think Dustin Hoffman's performance was great. We also have Justin Henry as Billy, and he was brilliant as well. So there were some bits that were well done. I guess well-written characters, believable situations, believable emotional responses. If the legal aspect is factually accurate, then that is very interesting, and I thought that worked very well. But it definitely took up a much smaller portion of the film than I was expecting. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad film, but I was going into it expecting one thing, and the focus was on something else. And again, that's fine, but based on the title and the limited knowledge, I knew that it was about two parents in a custody battle, and then with a title like that, I thought it was going to be much more legal heavy. Now, some people might actually prefer the way it's done, and that's absolutely fine, but again, that for me was not what I was expecting, not what I was in the mood for either. So, it's okay, but I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it deserves 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb. That's across 160,000 reviews and ratings, which is a phenomenal rating, and I genuinely don't understand it. But if other people love it, then fine, that's absolutely fine. But I'm disappointed, not because it was a bad film, but because it was nowhere near the film that I thought it was going to be, both in terms of the quality of the storytelling and also the focus. It did win 5 Oscars. It won Best Picture, and I'm actually curious to see what it was up against. I'll check that in a second. We also have Best Actor for Dustin Hoffman. Yep, fair enough. We have Best Actress for Meryl Streep. I mean, the performance wasn't bad, but I don't think it was particularly memorable. We also have Best Director for Robert Benton, and also Best Writing as well. It was also up for Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography, and Best Actress Leading in a Supporting Role for Jane Alexander, and Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Justin Henry, who was apparently currently the youngest Oscar nominee, which is adorable. That's really, really sweet. Best actor in a leading role, yeah, I can see that. Best picture, well, I will now confirm what it was up against because I can't really say, well, I don't think it deserved it because obviously it depends on what it was up against. I think it's addressing a really important topic, but I don't think it did it in the most memorable or engaging way. It was up against All That Jazz, Apocalypse Now, Breaking Away, and Norma Ray. I've not seen any of them. Have I seen All That Jazz? I'm not sure. Either way, Kramer versus Kramer is the only one that I either have seen or can remember seeing, so I can't say whether it deserves to win against the others, but I don't personally think it's an Oscar-worthy film. But that's just my opinion. Clearly other people disagree, so if you've been curious about it, check it out. You may absolutely love it. Or like me, you may think it's a decent film, but not amazing. Kramer versus Kramer is one where I'm glad I finally got around to seeing it. It's been on my to-watch list for a while, and I thought I'm in the mood for a courtroom-based film, and I sat down to watch it, and I was disappointed. But even taking that out of the equation, I still don't think the narrative is as strong as it could be. I don't think the pacing was as good. I don't think it is perfect. And a lot of the reviews online seem to suggest that maybe some people do like it a lot, and that's absolutely fine. I don't mind it. It's not a bad film at all, but Kramer versus Kramer definitely wasn't as good as I was expecting.